Hello and welcome to BNC Sports. I'm James Hill. We are talking college football. We are joined by a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Coach Rudy Hubbard. He is a four-time national championship coach. I'm talking about 2 championships with the Ohio State University Buckeyes and 2 more national championships on the HBCU side with the Famu Rattlers. Coach, first and foremost, I hope you and your family are safe and sound. How are you, sir?
Doing just very well, and pleased to be able to say it, James. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's always
Good.
a pleasure to see you. Let's start off in Hubbard, Ohio. When the story begins, you're playing football, and then there's an opportunity to go up to The Ohio State University as a student athlete at the Horseshoe. Take us into the land of the Buckeyes.
Well, of course, most people know about the legendary Coach Woody Hayes. And when you grow up in Ohio, as I did, if you have an opportunity and you feel like you can play, if you're good enough to play at The Ohio State University, most people will take that. And so certainly I felt honored and great to have that opportunity to go and attend Ohio State University under the legendary Woody Hayes.
Coach, talk about your first encounter versus the Michigan Wolverines. It's a beautiful thing. Take us back to the Michigan game.
Well, when you say the first encounter, we had, back in those days, we played every year, of course, and it always seemed that in the odd years we would play in Michigan and we would lose. In the even years, we would play in Ohio State Stadium and we would win. And it just went like that, seemed like forever. My last game was probably my best game against the University of Michigan, and it was on national television. We were picked to lose that game by 2 touchdowns. And when you're playing on that level, of course, they had talked about firing Coach Woody Hayes at the end of that game if we lost. We were able to turn it around, that being my best game, and we won by 2 touchdowns. We felt like saved Coach Hayes' job, and then the very next year we went undefeated with and won the national championship out in the Rose Bowl against great O.J. Simpson and Southern Cal.
Now, Coach Hubbard, when you go out to USC and you actually play in Pasadena over in the Rose Bowl, take us into that national championship game. Mr. O.J. Simpson, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the boys from Troy, if you will, and USC. And again, now you're talking about the coaching, your coaching journey. Take us into that experience.
Yes. Well, it was a tremendous experience. That was my first year coaching. After my playing at Ohio State, Coach Hayes offered me an opportunity to become a coach. So that was my first year. O.J. Simpson was the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy that year. USC was undefeated, and we were undefeated. They were loaded, and we were loaded. We had Jack Tatum and Jim Steelwagon, Rex Kern. I mean, we had Leo Hayden and John Brockington. I mean, we were loaded. Most of those guys were sophomores, and O.J. ended up winning that Heisman Trophy that year. But we were able to beat them in that Rose Bowl game and win the national championship. I would have to tell you that probably the third play from scrimmage, O.J. broke loose and went 80 yards, and we were worried, but we stayed the course, and we were able to turn it around and win the national championship. My very first year coaching at Ohio State.
Coach Hubbard, recruiting is the bloodline or the lifeline, if you will, of college athletics, and in this particular case, the Buckeyes. You bring in Archie. Take us to your recruiting trail as you were able to land one of the best of all time.
Yes, it was kind of crazy. I mean, at Ohio State at that time, we really didn't have a sophisticated, as I look back on it, a sophisticated I would say, recruiting methodology, okay? Because basically what would happen is we had coaches assigned to certain territories, but if you talk loud enough and holler loud enough and strong enough, then that's how we determine what players we would actually recruit. And some coaches had more clout than others. But Archie Griffin grew up right in Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio State is established. And he also grew up being about 5'9", and watching those guys that I just described, John Brockington, Leo Hayden, talking about running backs that had played for me, and but they were like 6'2", 6'1", 220 pounds, 230 pounds. And Archie didn't think he was big enough to play. He was on his way to Northwestern University. And I was fortunate enough to be able to talk some sense to him and helped him to understand that my being the running back coach, if I thought he was good enough, then I felt like he should think he's good enough. And I was able to get a lot of people involved in that recruitment process. And to make a long story short, we ended up landing one of the greatest football players ever to put the uniform on.
Coach, next stop, the highest of 7 hills. You bring in the Florida A&M University, home of the Rattlers, HBCU football. Take us into your days as you walked into Famu, and your philosophy was to put a football team together and win some football games.
It was. I remember, of course, coming to Florida A&M, Woody Hayes and the legendary Coach Gaither were pretty good friends. And Coach Gaither had established such a tremendous football program here at Florida A&M until that's one of the things that kind of enticed me to want to come here. Because I'm coming from tradition, and I felt like seeing what Coach Gaither had done, then it made sense to me if they were to offer me the job that I would come here. But I'm telling a story about when I first came, and I remember they wanted me to talk to a group of men who followed Florida A&M football, and they asked me a question. Coach, how many games do you think you can win your first year? When they selected me to come, they didn't select me in time for me to practice spring. And they waited until after spring practice was over in most places. So I came in on the run. But my answer was, I expect to win every football game. That's just the way I look at it. Boy, they about laughed me out of there. It was a group called the Frontiers Club, but that was the way I felt about it. And there was a gentleman who, he used to work at Tallahassee Furniture. And he said, after they finished laughing, he said, if you win every game, he said, I'll buy you 2 of the best suits that you want to pick in Tallahassee. And the year we went undefeated with 1977, I forgot all about it, actually. He came to me and gave me 2 gift certificates to a clothing store down in Tallahassee Mall, allowed me to go pick the suits. But that's just the way I thought about it. I felt like we could win every game if everybody followed my coaching, and we had the players to do it, and that's what happened.
Orange Blossom Classic, Miami, Florida, Jackson State University on one side, Florida A&M on the other. Both teams collide, if you will, on the gridirons. Take us back to that symbolic contest.
Well, yeah, that was, boy, you talk about a contest, but the Orange Blossom Classic part, we were told we had to win that game, and that game was actually against Grambling. And if we didn't win that game, we wouldn't be able to be in the playoff. But if we beat Grambling in Miami at the Classic, then we would have the opportunity to go to Jackson, Mississippi, and play Jackson State at their place. And so we were able to beat Grambling. But when we went to Jackson, We went in there. It was a pretty decent day. Before we could blink an eye, it seemed like it just started snowing. And we just didn't think we would have to encounter snow in Jackson, Mississippi, but it was terrible. Our guys went out, we found all the long johns they had, and so we came out. Jackson State was probably the championship game. We had another game to play after we won, but they were so physical. We were physical. They had great players, and we did too. And I felt like that was the championship game, but it was actually in Jackson, Mississippi when we played them.
Next stop, the championship game, and you look over and you see UMass. Take us back into that particular game and what that experience was like for you personally.
Well, again, we're talking about now, we're at the last game. We win this game, it's over. You know, we've accomplished what we set out to do, and we're national champs. And better yet, we're the first 1AA national champs ever. And so the weather, once again, played a major role because it was very, very cold out there and the wind was blowing so strongly. One time, Sammy Knight, on a punt, we went to punt the ball and it went straight up in the air and came back for about a 5-yard advance. And that's where Massachusetts was able to take over the ball. But basically, we had to play the game in halves. And the half we had to win in our back, then we might be able to throw it, but we were kind of a run-oriented team. Matter of fact, we had 2 backs that ran for over 200 yards each. Michael Solomon and Melvin McFadden each had over 200 yards in that game. And so, great honor to be coaching such fine young men, man. And we went ahead and played that game. It was really, really something that we'll never forget. They can never take away from us. So we've been kind of celebrating that ever since.
Coach, to be a national champion and to be an HBCU champion and a college football Hall of Famer, talk a little bit about what it's like to reach your goals and the sense of accomplishments.
It's tremendous. I was really kind of worried about the Hall of Fame part because it seemed like I had been nominated now for, I would guess, 9 or 10 years that I went each year and not really making it in. I kind of put it off my mind after so long, and I kind of just felt like, okay, this is not happening. And one day I was sitting up here and a UPS guy came with a box and I didn't know what it was. I knew I hadn't ordered anything, so I let it sit around for about 45 minutes. When I finally opened it, it was the football that the Hall of Fame sends to you when they have selected you to participate as a Hall of Famer. And that happened in January of this year. And I'll be going in and I'll be inducted on December 7th. I'm so excited about this, man, until words can't describe it, because it was a lot of hard work. I'm going in, but I'm just representing all the great young men that I was fortunate enough to coach and all the outstanding coaches. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Because at Florida A&M, when I came in, a lot of the coaches were actually teachers and they coached other sports. Guys like Costa Kittles and Bobby Lang and Mungeon and those guys, they were actually great coaches at other sports. And so I was just fortunate enough to have those guys. They allowed me to bring 2 guys in, Fred Goldsmith, my defensive coordinator, and Alan Bogan came in from Youngstown, Ohio with me, and a homeboy, so to speak, but he coached my offensive line. So that was the way we had to do our coaching staff, but it was a great opportunity and one that I'm very proud of. And that's propelled me to go on into the Hall of Fame, but I always recognize those guys, because without those guys, it probably would never have happened.
Coach, speaking of Florida A&M University, the Rattlers, they are back in the FCS playoffs. They are taking on a very talented team in southeastern Louisiana. Both teams will play in that contest, and whoever wins will move on. Talk about Coach Willie Simmons in this group of Rattlers and what you see when you look over on the highest of 7 hills.
Well, Coach Simmons and I go back a ways, okay? I knew him as a young man, didn't know he was going to end up becoming the head coach at Florida A&M, but I knew him just as a young fellow that I thought was really an outstanding guy at the time, just a nice guy. But man, I mean, I'm so proud of him and what he's done with the young man over at Florida A&M and with the Florida A&M football program. To get into the playoff is something special. And I really love the way that he approaches his coaching style. It reminds me so much of myself. I had to tell him that. I don't know if he agreed, but you know, he's got a really, really outstanding defense. He's got outstanding players all across the field, but that defense is #1 in the nation right now. And so that's the way we were. Now, Fred Goldsmith being my defensive coordinator, I mean, we had the best defense in the country, I felt. And so that's going to always keep you in the ball game. But Coach Simmons, you know, he talks about these guys not just as football players, but he talks about those guys being great citizens in the community and being good students and representing Florida A&M in the right way. I love the way that he approaches his coaching style, and then to be winning too. I mean, so that's I can't be prouder of him than I am right now, and I just hope that everything turns out in our best interest. I believe we're going to bring the bacon home.
Coach, can you share with the audience some of your special items, if you will, that you have that have been bestowed upon you to really show the symbolism, if you will, of the fruits of your hard labor in terms of your football journey? And can you share some of those items with us and give us a recap?
Be glad to, James. And what I would like to do, I'm hoping that everybody can see it, start off with my book. This is something I'm really, really proud of. It's my book. We did sign copies the Friday before our homecoming this year, and we have it on sale now. So anybody who might be interested in our journey, all they got to do is contact me at rudyhubbard.com and request it, and then I'll send them a signed copy if they'll leave me their address. The other thing I'm going to show you is, I hope you can get a good look at this. This is a trophy that my players, a lot of them from that championship team, gave to me the same day we introduced the book, which was the Friday before the homecoming game this past year. And then the other thing I want to show is, it's kind of heavy, but can you see that?
Yes, sir. Very nice.
Okay, yeah, this was presented to me by the Rattler Varsity F Club coach, Curtis Taylor, being president of the club, and all the members that incorporate the Varsity F Club. Curtis was a guy who played for me. He was already on the team when I came to Florida A&M. But again, he was one of those guys, man, that followed my coaching to a T. He's still doing that. And now he's CEO of the Urban League, president of the Varsity F Club, and a young man that I'm so proud of, once again, that doing a lot of great things for the community. And but they presented this Rattler to me for going into the Hall of Fame as well. And an outstanding orange jacket that I wish I had brought in here to show you that, because I'm real excited about it. But yeah, those are just a couple of the items. The last thing is this. You know, Greg Coleman went into the Black College Hall of Fame, and he came to that presentation and he wanted me to have this. This is a symbol of his going into the Black College Hall of Fame, but he wanted me to have a part of it. So I'm proud of that and proud of him as well.
Coach, when you think about a wonderful journey and you sit back and you reminisce on 4 national championships, You talk about Power 5 and the HBCU experience. How special is it and how symbolic is it to be a part of walking history when anybody would just be happy to have one championship?
Hey, I'm so proud of all of that, James. You're right. You know, and it was a lot of hard work. And but again, the hard work is obvious, but man, I can't say enough about the players. You know, I had some outstanding players during the time that I was able to coach. I had some outstanding players, man, and coaches. And none of that would have been possible if I didn't have that. So that's my daughter calling. But anyway, what a great opportunity, man, to be able to come to such an outstanding university like Florida A&M, represent them, and Coach Gaither and all the things that he had done already, and for us to come in and be an extension of that. And he had a big role in our getting into the 1AA championship, as a matter of fact, because I don't think we would have gotten in at the last minute like we did if Coach Gaither hadn't made that presentation for us. So again, man, I'm honored. I'm just blessed to be able to talk with you like this, and my health has been good. So it's just an honor. I want to say one thing. Willie Simmons, again, has been a guy, man, who came in here and embraced everything that we stood for. And I felt like before Coach Simmons, some of the guys may have come in, and the fact that I stayed here in Tallahassee didn't seem to embrace what we had done. I don't know why, because I tried to stay out of the way. But Coach Simmons, not only did he come in and embrace the teams that I coached, but he embraced all the other coaches, and I've heard him talk so elegantly about everything that he felt that he could take and pass on to the guys as they approach this year, going for this championship. And I'm hoping and praying that these guys will bring it home. So it's been an honor, and I'm pleased to be talking about him and hoping and praying for him. I'd be so elated if they were able to win that thing.
Well, folks, there you have it from a gentleman of history, a gentleman of football, and a four-time national champion, 2 on the HBCU side and 2 on the Power 5 side. He is Coach Rudy Hubbard. I'm James Hill. You're watching BNC Sports. We will be right back after this.